The so in a lot of these interviews, unlike I think what you'd find in banking or consulting, a lot of the questions are pretty soft. They're really about personality fit more than anything.
Yeah, there were some companies that were very specific and wanted to know like how much you knew about them. So obviously do your research. I remember going for a interview at HBO, and they wanted to know like how many partnerships can I name, and it was great because I just read about their new partnership with Roku at that time, so I was able to bring that up, and it turns out the person interviewing me was in charge of that relationship. So she was very excited and then spent the next 10 minutes of my interview like showing me how HBO Roku works.
Yeah, the strangest question that I was ever asked was that if you have $20,000, in which stock would you invest in? So they were not really trying to test my knowledge of the stock market, rather which company, according to me, is currently dominating the industry and why. And that was a very interesting way to phrase that question and ask. And I think it was a pretty interesting discussion that we had then.
With Amazon, I was asked, what is the most revolutionary thing that you have worked on? And it took a while for me to understand what revolutionary means to them and whether or not I might meet their expectations. And I had to give them a couple of responses before they were convinced that whatever I had done was considered revolutionary. So that was the first one. The second one was at Google. At Google, I was asked if you are given 3 years, unlimited resources, people and money, what would you build? And this was just one question which we had to talk about for 30 minutes, spread across different aspects of product management. So I felt that it was pretty intense, and this was with a senior person at Google.
The one exception I would say was when I was at Hulu, there was a question about, if we were going to introduce Hulu to airplanes, how would you think through that deal? What would your concerns be? What would you want to make sure is put into that contract? And this was really an exercise to see, I think, not only how well do you understand the industry, but how well do you understand the pressures that you run into. So a lot of it turned into this conversation about, what are the technology limitations? What would the user experience be like? How would you pay for it? How would you sign people up? Would people be able to log into their accounts? How often would you need to make sure that the library is actually updated? Questions even about mature content. Do you need to put an age gate in that, and how would you implement that? So really thinking about a lot of those specific deal points and specific operational details, just to give a perspective on how you'd actually implement it.
Honestly, I wasn't thrown any curveball questions. They were all pretty standard. Like, everyone I interviewed with genuinely just kind of wanted to get to know me, and the questions that I was asked were pretty standard to kind of whatever company that I was applying to. So they were entertainment related, or when I applied to the Mattel internship to work on their Nickelodeon and Disney properties, it was what kids shows do you remember, or like what's your favorite toy. But yeah, really no curveball questions. So entertainment industry's nice.